Okay, welcome, bienvenue, and welcome again. It is Monday, it is 7, this is Drift Crash. This week, I am here to talk to you about these wonderful round things in front of me, which we call tyres. So the first thing I want to deal with is misconceptions about which tyre to run. What a lot of people would do is they'll go for a budget tyre and they'll go for a small size, so a 205, 215, and you'll go out and you'll skid about on those tyres and everything will be hunky-dory. In your head, you're getting a lot of run time for that tyre, but there is a better way. Now, what you can do is get a wide tyre like this. These are a 265, and you can run a wide tyre at high pressure and it will last longer. Reason for that being is that what you're doing is managing heat. And there's various examples on these tyres of where heat has done damage and where driving has done damage, and we'll go through that in a minute. If you run a wide tyre at high pressure, it takes you longer to heat up the overall tread than it will do if you have a narrow tyre. So if you're going practicing, what you need to do is get yourself a wide tyre, but at a higher pressure, and drift on that. If you can buy scrubbed in tyres and then go out on those, because they harden up, you know, these tyres aren't really designed for multiple heat cycles. So because the tyre hardens up, it's then very tough, and you can do a lot of laps on those, and because they're scrubbed in tyres, it's kind of cheap. So you've got an option there. However, if you're running a fairly decent car, and then you want to go out and do pretty solid practice, then you can obviously buy new tyres. Now, these days, back in the day, we just had any old things, and then eventually somebody stumbled upon some Yokohamas that did very well, and that became, you know, all sorts of tyre brands we have up to the modern day where we have actual specific tyres for drifting. So for example, these tyres are a 200 Treadwear, which that's the hardness of the tyre. So if you have a 100 Treadwear, it's much softer than a 200, or a sort of budget road tyre, which would be 300, 320 or more, you know, some of them. Moving forwards, the tyres in front of me. So these are tyres that have come off my drift car, running on a fairly smooth surface, sort of moderate grip levels. So these particular tyres have been run at 30 PSI. Now I started at a much higher pressure. So when I first went out in the car, I actually started at 60 PSI and I've slowly worked my way down. When you get down to sort of 30 PSI and you start using the actual grip of the tyre, because that's a normal pressure, then funny things start happening. And as you can see here, this tyre is delaminated. The reason for that on this particular tyre is because the corner I was entering, I was using a lot of handbrake. This would have been the trailing wheel. So as I'm going into the corner, if you look at the treads of the tyres, I'm going that direction, so out of shot. And this is the leading edge, this is the trailing edge. So because of the angle of the wheel as I'm entering the corner, and because of the pitch of the car, what's happening is that the car is leaning in like this, and therefore a lot of load is going on this inner edge of the tyre, and a lot of load is going on this outer edge, because I'm getting a lot of camber roll. Because of the rim width, it means that I can then increase the pressure and deflate the pressure, which it does adjust the center of the tyre, but what I'm more interested in is what it does for the sidewall of the tyre. So on this lead wheel here, you can see this edge. I've actually radiused this edge off, and it's taken this shoulder off. Along the center of the tyre, it's almost still a legal tyre, but I'm rolling over that much on the tyre that it's taken the outer edge off. Now if I continue to drop the pressure, I'll dig into this edge even more, up to this rib that you can see here. So the further over into that I get, the more stopping power I will generate from that tyre. The main difficulty is that I need to do an entire another video on just geometry and why this rollover on initiation happens and why it's beneficial. So because we're only focused on the tyres today, then I'll try and keep things simple. This lead edge is what's giving you rotational grip. This trailing edge is what's giving you bite and driving you forwards, and you're trying to use the full platform of the tyre ideally, but with the focus on this lead edge. This particular set of tyres have become, at 30 PSI, quite susceptible to heat and flat spotting while using the handbrake, which is why you see this delamination. So if I rotate this tyre, you can see this edge here hasn't delaminated, the contact patch is quite even. So what's happened here is there'll probably be what we call a witness mark, which is there. So you can see that these points are almost flatted off. It's like an extra little sort of flat shoulder, and that's probably where I've been on the handbrake. It's created a flat mark in the tyre. So your tyre almost becomes hexagonal, and then every time you pull the handbrake from then on, the point it's most likely to stop rotating is on that same flat spot. So you'll just continue to wear the tyre. So in real terms, these tyres have done absolutely what they're meant to do. They've been very consistent, but that heat spotting from using the handbrake has just meant it's had a delamination. So based on my experience from these tyres, I've then sought out a tyre which potentially would suit my requirements a little more, and I will show you those now. Here is my solution, Zeknova tyres. So here you can see two completely different treads, two completely different styles of tyre, both aim to do the same thing but give you a different result. So the first is the Supersport RS and a 265/35/18. The second is an RS606 R1 tyre and a 265/35/18. So same tyre sizes, completely different results. The first tyre is a practice tyre. So it's got a 240 treadwear versus the R1 with a 140 treadwear. So as we discussed before, the lower treadwear, the 140, is what's going to give you a serious grip, and the 240 is what's going to give you longer run time and better wear because it's just a tougher piece of rubber. The main difference you'll notice right away is that the shoulders of the tyre are completely different. So going back to the worn out tyres that we looked at, you can see the shoulder here of this tyre is very high and has a lot more meat on it than the previous tyre, and obviously the competition tyre. The reason for that is simply so you get more run time when you're running lower pressure and using that sidewall of the tyre. Additionally to that, this tyre has 8mm of tread, whereas the competition tyre has 7mm. So with the 8mm, you'll get more run time, but with the 7mm, it's a slightly lighter tyre and you get into the grippier part of the tyre quicker. So when you're talking about the cost of tyres like this, you've got to take into account what they do. So obviously with a Supersport, you'd imagine, because there's more meat on it, there's actually more product there. You think maybe it'd be more expensive, but it's actually the cheaper of the two tyres. So tyres are very much based on compound. Now, if you have a tyre like this with extra tread, extra hardness and extra shoulder, the runtime from that is massively extended. So where you gain is actually not just in the fact that you don't need as many tyres, it's also the fact that you don't need as much tyre changing and you don't need as many spare wheels. So because this tyre has all that extra tread depth, because it has all that extra shoulder, you get that runtime from it. Moving on to competition, you can come over to the RS606 tyre, which is uncompromised. It has a radiused edge, which means you get onto the shoulder of the tyre quicker and generate the most grip there. It has a slightly varied tread depth over the face of the tyre, which means you have a more consistent contact patch at a lower pressure, and it's got a more aggressive tread pattern. The RS tyre is a 140 treadwear, so the wear rate of the tyre is much lower, which means it will give you more grip but for less time. This tyre is for somebody who is not compromising, who wants absolutely everything. We often say, you know, the tyre with this much grip and this sort of treadwear will make your car do wheelies, and that is very much the case. So this RS tyre is the one that I'm using to compete this year because I want absolutely the maximum of everything, and I definitely want to try and break my drive shafts with the phenomenal amount of grip that they're going to give me. However, when I'm practicing, I'm definitely going to be on the Supersports and using the fact that they've got all this extra meat on them just to keep putting laps in and keep moving forwards with the setup of my car, bearing in mind that there is some variance in setup between the two tyres. On a final note, I would say that all of this is just simply based on my own experience. I'm definitely not an expert in tyres, but I've burnt out a lot of them. It's worth bearing in mind that with all of the money that you spend on your drift cars, you know, we've all got fancy steering wheels and funky bucket seats and body kits. The tyre is actually the part of the car that connects you with the ground, and you will never waste money spending on decent tyres and decent suspension because they're doing all of the work for you. On that note, can it be on a bombshell or is it on a note? It's on a note.
Bombshell is top gear.
On that Bork Shack. On these tyres, this is the end of the episode. If you enjoyed what you've seen, just comment and let me know what you think, because like likes and shares, whatever, you know, but if you comment and we interact, and we learn stuff together. And if I've said something dumb, just tell me and we'll do something about it and we'll move forwards and we'll all be a bunch of happy drifty friends that are doing happy drifty things together, because that's what it's about, isn't it, really? And yeah, see you next week at 7. Don't know what that was. Shouldn't do that.